Queen Elizabeth II has left Buckingham Palace for the final time, now lying in state at Westminster Hall as the nation says goodbye. The solemn procession through the streets of London watched on by tens of thousands, united in grief.
To the sound of minute guns, the Queen's coffin will leave in procession.
The coffin is about to leave Buckingham Palace for the final time.
Following the coffin as it leaves Buckingham Palace, King Charles and senior members of the royal family.
It was so emotional, not only seeing the Queen's coffin, but the members of the royal family following. It was so quiet, everyone was so respectful.
This day of most solemn duty for a king and a son.
Just to see them, seeing her, was something I'll never forget.
We hear the steady beating of the drum, that metronome of grief.
Just saw the passing of the Queen, literally, from my eyes, and it just so sad, so profound.
It was just special, and it meant a lot to me.
And we can see the massive hall of Westminster waiting to greet the late sovereign. She is taken from the gun carriage and carried into the heart of that hall.
The guards removing the bearskin hats in preparation for the carrying of the coffin.
6 paces, outwards, march, turn.
8 young men charged with this most public of duties.
And to God's gracious mercy and protection we commit you. The Lord bless you and keep you.
We prepare for the first 6-hour watch, 20 watches in total between now and the moment on Monday morning when Her late Majesty's coffin is carried to Westminster Abbey for the funeral.
Well, I'm joined now by our UK correspondent, Lucy McDonald. Lucy, just hearing that back now, we both had exactly the same reaction. I mean, we've seen so many royal processions over the last few days, but this one was particularly moving.
Yeah, absolutely. It really gets you right there. Watching it yesterday, I was completely unprepared for how I would feel, but it was the music, that funeral march, the Big Ben toiling every minute, the guns, but also the synchronicity of all the soldiers and everyone walking, you know, completely in rhythm, completely in time. And then looking at Charles and Anne and the grief etched on their face, but also the responsibility of leading that march just 6 days after their mother had died. And then, of course, William and Harry side by side behind them, reminding me of the last time we saw them do that, which was at Diana's funeral all those years ago. So it felt, I think it stirred something quite ancient in people. It felt like a really ritualistic procession.
Yeah. We've seen footage of one of the guards standing by the coffin actually fainting. I mean, that's an indication of the intensity of the experience that everyone is going through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that footage was really quite dramatic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He just suddenly toppled over. And these are people who are trained for this. They're used to standing. They rotate every 20 minutes. They're on shift for, I think, 6 hours. But after that happened, I imagine there was huge jeopardy in the hall. People rushed to his aid, but there was a blackout on the live feed for an hour.
Out of respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there is always that sense of jeopardy. I felt it with the procession as well. Some of the horses were getting quite lively. Yes. So no matter how much you practice or rehearse for these things, on the day, things happen.
So we're moving into day 2 now of the Queen lying in state behind us there at Westminster Hall. And there's been an online live queue tracker to let everyone know exactly how long the queue is. Where's it up to now, and what sort of wait, do we know?
Well, I've been slightly, sadly, obsessively tracking it. So overnight it was about 2.1 miles. I'm not sure what that is in kilometres. Is that about 4?
That's probably 3 and a bit.
Yeah, but now, this morning, it's 2.8 miles. So people are obviously getting up and coming here. That's about a 7, 8, 9 hour wait. So a substantial amount of time. But the news from the queue is, you know, there's a great camaraderie, I think.
Well, again, just behind us, that is is the exit over there as people are leaving Westminster Hall and coming out? I know you've been speaking to a few people. What have they had to say?
Lots of different stories. One big theme is the queue itself. There was a great sense of joy. The British are great at queuing, and this feels like a triumph in planning and execution.
There is the soccer and all that sort of stuff, so they're well trained.
Yeah, absolutely. But everyone's saying that there's a great feeling of camaraderie in the queue. They actually enjoyed that, and then you walk into the hall and obviously the mood completely changes. I met people who decided on a whim last night at 9 o'clock that they were just going to get the train down. I met people with mobility issues who stood for 7 or 8 hours. They all said that they wouldn't have missed it, and it was capturing a moment in history, but also, laying respect to the Queen.
Now, today marks exactly a week since the Queen's passing. There is still much to do leading up to the funeral, so what's next?
Well, I think King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla are having a day of rest, a much-earned day of rest, and we mustn't forget that Charles is 73 and Camilla is 75, so they're spending the day at their Highgrove estate preparing for the funeral on Monday.
Seems very appropriate that on the 7th day they rest. But back to it on day 8, I'm sure. Lucy, thanks so much. Always great to get your insight.